All right, we're talking about Pink Floyd selling their music and likeness rights to Sony for $400 million. Long in the works, the deal includes rights to the band's recordings, branding, theatrical rights, through songwriting rights remain in control of the members. I think that list could have just been longer. Like, we own you for the rest of eternity.
It's this really strange concept to me because, Pink Floyd, like all the remaining members are very, very old now. Like there's not, they're not going to, maybe they'll have a few more years. It's not going to live that much longer in the grand scheme of things. And it's like, so you're kind of like now privatizing the rights to all their music they've ever made to a corporation that can last beyond their lifetimes.
Forever.
And forever. And that doesn't really feel like the right thing to, I mean, there's already all this difficulty with copyright where we've gone to kind of an extreme with copywriting music and melodies and in a way that I don't think really even makes sense. And now this is just another like step further down that road.
Well, and how unrock and roll. Now, I'm not going to chastise them for doing it because everyone's Bob Dylan did it, Tina Turner just did it.
I don't know. I think you can chastise them. I mean, they came out with, the Wish You Were Here album that was totally ragging on the whole business, the record label business and rich people. It's like, well, wait, I get it. Decades upon decades have passed since then,
but rock and roll used to be punk.
Yeah.
It used to be punk and go fuck yourself. And now it's like, here's our ticket. Could you punch us for us, please, and give us our $100 million each?
And also, did they really need the money? Like what was the driving force behind that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing all right, you probably got plenty of money as is. Like, I just wonder what the motivation for it was, because it probably wasn't just money.
Do you think part of it is they want to have one entity control their legacy? So like say you split your legacy between four families, right? Because when person A passes away, all of a sudden that family member is going to step in, and instead to have more control.
That's possible. Maybe they just didn't have anyone that they really trusted with their legacy.
Yeah.
And especially as they had this feud going on since the 80s.
For sure.
Between them, it's like, here's a third party that's going to hopefully, be more responsible than person A or B is going to be.
And one thing that we've seen time and time again is when a big corporation buys your legacy, much like with Star Wars, they do a really good job with it.
They manage it.
They represent your interests really well. They fucking took George Lucas's screenplays and threw them away for the next 3 movies, which probably would have been shit anyway.
I mean, they definitely would have been worse than the movies that did come out.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far. The other thing that I think is interesting is your branding and your likeness. And with where AI is at right now, in 5 years, I see new Pink Floyd albums.
Well, they did not give them the songwriting rights, though.
Oh,
so they can't create new material. They can only use what's already been made. That's kind of the linchpin, I think. That's smart. The point that saves it.
Yeah. And not to bring up Star Wars again, but I'm going to, so not to bring it up. They in Rogue One, they brought back I can't remember his name, Peter Cushing's, I think, and it was an all CGI person. And I think they got the rights from. They had to have got the rights. So yeah, you're right. If they can't write new songs, but then it's gonna be an AI video for every song that they've ever done. Because a corporation buys this.
It happen anyway.
Yeah, I guess again it goes to the punks that were creating this FU music in the 80s and 70s are now businessmen.
Right. Well, and you can even look at the original punk movement that started in the UK. I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was like in the 60s or something. It lasted all of a few months before it was corporatized, before you had T-shirts on the shelves with the punk messages, and then it was over. The whole anti, counter society movement was just
it's anti-conformity, but we all had growing up. Hot Topic was the big store where all the punks and goths would go and buy the similar punk and goth outfit to be punk and goth.
Conform to the punk goth look.
And I mean, I got into some of that shit too, where it's like, oh man, that's a cool store, and it's very anti everything, and you're like, wait, this T-shirt's 1995. Who's making the money on? Oh, we're all wearing Nirvana shirts. Or even like 5 years ago, people are like, do you even know what band that is? And they're like, no, but it's a cool shirt.
Right. Which, this is totally a tangent, but it completely reminds me of when I first moved to the Czech Republic. I lived in a crappy dorm building for the foreigners.
Which you were at the time then, right? You were the foreigner.
I was an immigrant at the time. And so I was roomed with a Japanese dude, and he told me about this it probably doesn't still exist, but there was this website called Angrish.com or something like that, and it was this website with all the like pictures straight from Japan of like their ideas of what English looks like, because they didn't like just translate anything. They just like, English looks like this and it looks cool, so we're going to put this on these t-shirts and sell them. And it's this total like nonsensical English that meant nothing, but it looked like English, the English language, and so they wore it and it was cool.
We are all trying to search for the little bit of that I belong or meaning, or the punk rockers fighting against the system. Well, we're fighting against this, or they were fighting against the system to make punk the system, right? I mean, that is to a point the idea. So why wouldn't you want to be uniform and create a business out of it? And then people see dollar signs and go, all right, I like that. Right. I like the money, and
Right. Well, you don't get much more like anti-establishment than Rage Against the Machine, and then just a couple years ago, they were like the establishment message is what they were pushing.
Yeah.
So it's like that total flipping on the head, right?
And this is my question to everyone ever: is like, if I gave you $1 million tomorrow, would you probably just shift to my message that I want you to?
I think you could buy almost anyone's opinion. You're like, hey, if you say what I want you to say and believe what I want you to believe, I will give you I will give you a living.
Well, here's what happens then, right? It's not like somebody's actively giving you $1 million, but what happens is you're Rage Against the Machine and you have that money. So now you have to protect that money. To protect that money, you need to go along with whatever people want you to go along with. You need to do, so if 90% of my audience likes product A, I'm going to promote product A.
Yeah. It's true.
Where Michael Jordan was like, Democrats and Republicans buy shoes. I'm not going to put my foot in politics at all. We're not technically talking about politics right now, but we're kind of in a way going with the Rage.
Well, when especially with Rage, that's a very political band. But kind of anyone who goes and stands up to the establishment is making, in a sense, a political stance, right? It's saying that the current politics of our time are wrong, and this is what I see is wrong. So, it is fundamentally, I'd say it's a political message whenever you're doing that.
So what are your thoughts as a big Pink Floyd fan of them?
Big fan of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels, I don't know that I can express exactly why, but it feels sad to me, because it does, I guess it seems, just like you were saying, kind of like a betrayal of the ideal.
Yeah, corporatization. Anything that you love. I love how I asked you a question. I'm going to interrupt you. Anytime that we take what we love and corporatize it, right? We're putting a stamp on it now that Pink Floyd doesn't own Pink Floyd anymore. Isn't that crazy? Pink Floyd doesn't own Pink Floyd anymore.
Right. And then now, since we talked about it a little bit, I've thought a bit more clearly in the sense of, who's going to manage your brand after you're gone, because the brand's still going to exist. So someone's going to manage it. So they're really, in the way in which I can kind of be more inclined to agree with the move, it's like, maybe they're giving the management of the brand to someone that they think will do a decent job with it. And again, they didn't give songwriting rights.
Yeah, but here's where my argument with that: they sold the rights to Sony. And I don't know Sony well enough, but I'm guessing what they care about is the bottom dollar, because that's why you spend $400 million, right?
Right.
Where instead, why not set up a private equity firm that is Pink Floyd? Is as shitty, but I'd rather have Pink Floyd interest represented first, or this. I'm not a huge fan of Pink Floyd, I like a couple of their songs, but if it was a band that I really liked, I would rather have them hire somebody or them to form a corporation. Now, I paused because as I said that, I was going to be like a family member. Well, we talked in the past about Tom Petty. He screwed up. He didn't screw up his will. He just did a poor man's will. And it was not a great legal document to the point where his 2 daughters sued his ex-wife. So they all have 3. So he wrote it in a way that said, my family members split my estate. Well, supposedly he meant my 2 daughters get half, my wife gets half. So they both have controlling interests. Well, the daughters sued so that they would own 33%, and the wife would have 33%. Well, then you have two that have a commanding lead, right? So they can and this is why we've had like Tom Petty T-shirts, Tom Petty mugs that we've never seen before. We have a new video coming out. We have a video 2 years ago, and it's like, you guys are kind of like just prostituting his fucking legacy.
Right. And yeah, I don't think it's easy when it comes to a legacy. Like, what do you do with that? And a lot of times, families get torn apart by inheritances and legacies, especially.
I think 90% of the time, it could be $40 and everyone's fighting over it.
Yeah. So I've even in my own like personal philosophy of the world, I've even realized that there's actually a ton of merit to the idea of only giving your inheritance to one of your children. Like back in the day, it was the oldest child inherited everything. I understand that now because otherwise the family tears itself apart over scraps.
Yeah.
And not only does your family fall apart because of this internal quarrel, but now you've diminished your wealth because you've split it amongst all these people. So all that wealth that you built up in this one generation now diminishes the next, and then you just keep doing this over and over and over until, generally speaking, the wealth goes away. It gets so far diluted that it's no longer wealth. It's just a couple bucks here and there.
I'd feel pretty bad though if I was second born in that system.
But if that's the system, then you know what to expect going into it. You know that you're not going to be the one that gets inheritance unless you off your older brother.
Oh, so you can have plans. You can figure stuff out to get there. Yeah. All right. For some reason I didn't go to murder right away, but you did. So I'm glad. Just your default is, let's kill the person. Good job, Nick.
I mean, that's one way to get what you think you want,
No, oftentimes inheritance obviously wrecks a lot of people because we all have this preconceived notion that we should get this amount of money, we should have this, and
this is what I deserve. This is such an entitlement because it came from your blood or something. I don't know. I mean, it happens over small amounts too. I mean, you're talking the rights to Pink Floyd. Like maybe that could have, that could have gone horribly awry. I mean, you've already got this decades-long feud between Gilmour and Waters. Like, are the family's going to do any better after they pass?
No, for sure. Thinking that you're not going to take this money and hopefully set up your family or whatever for life.
Right.
So it makes sense to have somebody manage it. I think the big sticking point is when it's Sony or MGM or whoever, these big players.
Right, that is a massive corporation to give the rights to. I would believe it was a very difficult choice.
For sure. Well, okay, so the news actually came out like 6 months ago that this might happen. David Gilmour even said this will never happen. So it was a very back and forth thing. So it makes sense that it was. They didn't make this flippant choice.
Right. So he must have eventually seen logic, or they must have found some kind of pressure point. Either way, he came around.
Yeah, he did. And got a nice check for it. And it's funny because music is a product. Mm-hmm. So, like, oftentimes we don't think of it as a pair of tennis shoes, but it is this product that you're like, well, I want to see somebody manage and do something with this product when I'm gone. I want something to exist afterwards.
I do wonder, though, like, one of the first thoughts that came to mind was, is there really $400 million to be had in the rights to Pink Floyd? Like, they're not getting more and more popular with time. The generation that really was into them is more or less gone. The next couple generations that are still pretty into them I don't know. Is it really that?
I think over time you can make money off anything. Like Stevie Nicks had a song during the pandemic that became #1 again. So, it was using a TikTok video and it blew up. And she had like a record, it hit #1 in the charts again. So, they have to look at their books going, okay, well, if we exist for another 100 years as Sony, which Sony will probably exist longer than either of us, well, obviously longer than either of us will. We've got like a week expiration date. So I think they can look and go, all right, we can make 400. I mean, we're hoping to make 800 million in the next 10 years. Because when you offer, much like when Disney bought Star Wars, they go, okay, we paid this much for it. In 7 years, we need to make this.
Another interesting aside, I did read somewhere a year ago or so that most corporations have a lifespan of approximately 100 years. Very, very successful corporations generally don't last longer than 100 years. Like and it was in relation to if you go back, like I think it was like 100 years and look at the top companies in the stock market, like none of them are there anymore, and most of them don't even exist.
Maybe Sony said we're going to buy Pink Floyd and then close. We're going to spend 400. If we don't make $1 billion tomorrow off this, we're done.
Shuttering our doors.
Yeah.
Calling it a day.
I mean, good on them. Good on them to get a $400 million paycheck, and wonder what taxes are on that.
He did mention in the article something about like a music rights gold rush at the moment.
For sure.
And I wonder if it has to do with this AI surge, like the surge of AI. Like you can do so much if you have the rights to stuff. You can do so much with it, especially in this new environment. So maybe there's something there to it.
I also think it's the age of the current population that still buys stuff. Pink Floyd, yes, they were in the 80s and big and huge, but those people are just starting to age out now. So they have another 5 to 10, they have another 20 years of them making good money off nostalgia.
Nostalgia does sell.
For sure. Dude, think of it. You have your likeness. All of a sudden, we're doing a hologram arena tour of Pink Floyd's music.
True.
And Roger Waters, and David Gilmour will be together. That didn't happen in real life, but we have holograms of them.
And the Dead members will be there.
Yeah.
And you'll all be dead at that time, probably.
No, I think it's a lot of that. And again, I look at that paycheck going, would I turn that down?
Well, what if you had like 40 million in the bank and you're offered 200 million? Like, you're already sitting pretty, you don't really need it. And then it becomes more of like an ideological question. Like, well, do I believe in doing this?
I don't believe in doing it. So I would say, but the Beatles, a big reason they broke up was when Brian Epstein died. He was their manager, and he kind of like massaged everything, made sure everything worked all the time. Well, when he passed away, Paul McCartney tried to bring in his father-in-law, which is always a great idea, right?
Oh, great! Yeah, wonderful. Bring in family.
Bring in family.
Get that.
You're the biggest band of all fucking time. You're gonna bring in a family member to manage you. You don't think the other 3 guys are gonna be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So find, and again, do you think those 4 guys in Pink Floyd were going to all agree on somebody? That's what I would like to see happen. Like if I was ever at that point where I was like, all right, I'd rather sell it to an organization that will continue to manage it just for me. Why do I need Sony? Pink Floyd could put everything into a trust.
Going to a credit union versus one of the big banks.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
You get more personalized service. You get more perks and benefits. Because they're smaller and they frankly just will care more about your business.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. The almost sterile nature of selling it to a big corporation, in my mind, could be part of the reason why it's a little bit of a rub. Even like Bob Dylan got a big paycheck. Tina Turner makes more sense for me. She's like she had good songs, but she's more of a pop artist in my mind. Bob Dylan sang all these songs about, fighting the power and, what's the meaning of life. I'm sure Tina had them as well. I just don't know her catalog. Pink Floyd had this.
Well, and for example, with Bob Dylan, that that came from his soul, from his heart. Like
Yes.
he was the creator of all that.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Tina Turner, but it's, she may have just been singing other people's songs,
Yeah.
and that's a whole different level of involvement.
Yeah.
And,
Much like with Pink Floyd, they wrote these songs, they sweated, they bled, they did all those cool things. Sweat and blood are the coolest, and wrote.
the coolest.
They're the coolest things ever. And so it just it does. It feels like a paycheck.
It's like selling your soul for some cash, kind of. Yeah.
Which I would totally do. I would totally sell my soul for cash. So that's where I do. I go back and forth between like, what's it worth and what are they going to do? And did they put up guardrails of saying, hey, you can do this, you can't do that? Which I'm guessing when you spend $400 million, you're like, no guardrails, or a couple.
Yeah, there's probably not very many guardrails. Yeah. Maybe we'll have like an AI David Gilmour on like Roger Waters' body, sing and play.
That'd be cool. They put all the members into one body, like a power. Yeah.
This is the Pink Floyd monster.
What if that's their new marketing thing? They're now just a Pink Floyd monster, and they're doing it for Halloween. That's why they're like, we gotta get this done. We gotta get these rights.